we've got Joey here now who's going to give us some hints and tips on simple painting techniques using acrylics, which I should keep an eye on because I've got a heap of acrylics here and all I can seem to do is make a mess with them. So anyway, I'll hand it over to you, Joey.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate that. So my name is Joey. I have my own training business, Touch of the Brush Model Weathering, and I do custom weathering, painting, as well as adding decals and details to model trains, as well as all kinds of models. And one time I had a client send me a few locomotives. I got through about 3 locomotives and fading them, and the airbrush completely went on me, and the hose went on me, and he wanted that project completed within about the next day, and there's no way I could get a airbrush within a few hours before he wanted them mailed out. So I had to figure out a way to use to do some fading on these locomotives, and long and behold, I have acrylic paints. I have white acrylic, I have some black and some brown acrylic paints, and I'm like, well, I guess I can use a paintbrush and air dry them. I'm like, well, I also have a blow dryer. So that's how I was able to fade the last locomotive. Unfortunately, I don't have the locomotive with me because it's with my client, but I do have a few examples on some of my personal projects. And one of them is here. And this is not, again, this is not from an airbrush. This is just from a paintbrush and using some acrylic paints, diluted, of course. And after a few coats of the same technique over and over again, I was able to get the fading and some actually dirt and grime that I wanted. And this is a dummy unit from Athearn, and I practiced on here, and this is actually based off a actual prototype, and so you can put up here. So that was used. The front, all that was just regular acrylic paints, some black acrylic paints, diluted and dried. Another one here. Now this one has a little more. This one actually has some weathering powders on them. And so this one is really faded out too. You see here. This side. And this dummy unit. Some extra paints and some really light gray. I was able to fade out the black a little more. And you can see here. And this is a beat up old Jeep that became a B unit. And you can see here some paint chipping and fading, a little bit of a toast from the burning on top here. And so obviously it was an ex-Norfolk Southern locomotive, and it became a B unit. And the H&E is the Hudson and New England Railroad, which was a fictional railroad that I was modeling. And so with that, I'm going to show you some techniques on, I'll show you the techniques that I've used. And I got a few cars here that we're going to, that I'll show you, and we'll get started. I got to bring the camera down, so just bear with me a moment. I'll put the mute on. All righty, so here we go. Now I have a few colors here. Now we're going to use Anita's acrylics, which I really love. You can get these at local hobby stores, arts and craft supply stores. This was only like $2.99 for the big bottle, and I'm almost done with it after 3 years. So that's just a regular flat brown, and yes, you want to use flat. This is a pewter gray. Then I have the regular flat black. You can see I use these guys a lot. And everybody's favorite for some fading will be white. I like these acrylics. They stay on really well. They don't when you dilute them, they blend really well into the model, is all I can say. And so honestly, and these are the exact supplies I used when I started fading. You can use a foam brush. I necessarily don't really use a foam brush too often, but you can. Um, my favorite and everybody's favorite, besides cleaning your ears after the shower, I use I like using these Q-tips. These, and we'll show you some techniques with Q-tips. An edge brush here. You can see, maybe going to the white a little bit. You see how it's an edge on there. And I have a few brushes and water right over here that I use. And it's really just experimenting on what brushes you want. And when you do any kind of fading or you creating some simple weathering with these acrylics using this technique with diluting the acrylic paints, you use what works for you. So we're gonna get started here. Now, this is a very, very shiny grain hopper, a sand hopper, and we're gonna dilute this guy here. So now we can use here, we're gonna start with a paintbrush. Now I got some water. I get some of that water. We could do some simple weathering with some of the brown. Now you can see how really light this is. You can go thicker. You want the paint to go thicker, the weathering to go thicker. And I'll show you some examples on this particular car. Or you want to go very, very light, you can. I do have a YouTube channel, and the latest video I uploaded on touch of the brush model weathering is I actually used this technique on a couple of Conrail locomotives recently. And so you can check that video out. So you can see how diluted that is. It's not really thick. If you want it thicker, you can. And so we're gonna do. You barely can see it. You can see it right over here in the corner, and looks more wet than anything else. Maybe over here, I want to go a little thicker. And I'll bring it up more towards the camera so you can see what we got going here. You can see the BNSF's already looking a little filthy. And I get the blow dryer, and I'm going to put this on mute. And on the low setting, I dry it. Oh my goodness, this thing's already practically weathered. And just like that, where you have a weathered look. And you look at the other side, see the difference there? Now it's already faded. So let's say we want some more grime or some more dirt. You can, like we were discussing before, we can go a little thicker. Take a little bit of paint. I'm going a lot thicker now. And let's say we want a couple of spots really, really thick. Maybe in the middle here. And we'll dry it. All right. So it's on a little thicker there in the center. You can see the difference in the shades. Now it's brown on brown, a little hard to see. But what if I want to do some fading with white? So what I'll do is, we know that the lettering is white, and so I get a very, very fine brush here. Same technique, just a little bit of water. And what I'm going to do is right here, get some more water on there. So I mean, my goodness, that looks kind of horrible, right? So we go back and get our Q-tips, and you can take some of that off, or let it lightly stroke it down. And it's a little wet, but don't like really rub into it, because then you'll take it off, and you'll see some light spots up here, and there will replicate the paint maybe dripping down off the logo. So we'll use the blow dryer again. Okay, and maybe a little difficult to see, but with that white, you can see that it's a lot brighter. It looks like the paint's fading out of it, and you see some of the white going downward, so it looks like it's wet from just the environment, rain, and all that, and it's the some of the white streaking down. So now, like I said, I think it's pretty good if you want some light weathering done, or if you want some heavy weathering, we're gonna go to the other side here, and I like mixing this Anita's black and brown together. Now I'll take a little bit of there, and again, it depends on what the model looks like. Sometimes I use a little bit of the weathering powders in here to mix up the paint and to give a different shade of a rust or a grime look. So you can see there, it's really a dark brown. I'm going to get some of that water, take a little bit of here. Right over here. Okay, there we go. That's the color I'm looking for right there. And now the part ratio, it really depends what you're looking for, and practice on it. Don't just go at it with some of your best models at first. But I want this to look really, really filthy. Now, on the other side, if you want to go darker, you can add more coats. And you can seal it first and then go back, or just keep adding coat to coat to coat without sealing it first. And sealing, I mean just sealing the first coat you did, which can be you can use matte finish, or dull coat will work too. All right, we're gonna go mute again. Okay, now this is the first side we started. Simple brown, different shades here, some paint fading off the logo here. And then we've got the other side, which is a darker color, and you can see the difference. It's a lot darker. And let's say I want to go darker. Let's go darker here. Get a little bit more. Maybe want this whole side just really, really covered. And you can add some water on here too to really lighten it up if you want and stretch out that paint. All right, going deaf again. Now I did this on purpose, and you can see how it looks really, really streaky. Maybe not doesn't look that great. You don't like it. Oh, it's acrylic paints, water base. Ooh, we don't want that in there. Not now, anyway. Go back over it with some with your paintbrush and some more water. Stretch out that paint even more, and you can repeat this as long as you want to. If you want to go back with a sponge brush, you can. Okay. Let me go mute. Okay. So now, maybe it looks a little streaky, maybe it looks a little sloppy still, but that's just after two coats, two thick coats, of course. But you can see the difference. This on the bottom was not wasn't done yet under here, so you can see the weathering and the difference. No, the wheels are too shiny for me. And you can do that. Now, let's say you don't like it, and like I said before, acrylic paints are water based, so I could scrub it off and start all over if I wanted to, or maybe there's certain spots I just don't like, or maybe a little spot right here I don't think I like it too much, and I want to redo that little spot over. All right, use the dry side. Or maybe I want to go over each individual part of the panels and clean the inside, but leave the outside parts dirty. I could do that too. So here's the cleanup part here. I mean, it's just like nothing ever happened. Now, if you seal it with something before you do this, you may have a tougher time. Normally, I do not seal until I know I am happy with the fading or the weathering process doing this. So back to mute. Okay. And there's your clean spot right there. And you can start over and redo it if you like. So that's for this car. Now I have gray, I have white, I have the brown and black. But what about a? Ooh, and this thing popped off. That's okay. What about a tank car? Now we could fade this, and now actually a gray, very, very diluted gray will work. I haven't tried it on this particular tank car, but I tried it on others, and it's packed somewhere in the box. I wish I was able to find it in time, but we're gonna give it a shot anyway. So here what I'm gonna do. I think that was the yeah, that's the weight. All right. So clean brush. All right, now we're gonna get some gray here. Again, we're gonna do very diluted. very light. And you're better off going light at first, unless you already know your consistency um, and your ratios for doing this. And we know the top of the tank cars usually are faded from the sun because don't forget it's curved. Okay, so when the sun usually hits, it's going to be right here, maybe not underneath too much. Or you could do the whole car, and I can show you a trick to do that as well. So let's do that. Let's say by accident I took the whole tank car and I faded the heck out of it, and I just wanted the top. So we can do that. Mhm. And usually have some nice music playing. I'm a drummer. I don't sing, obviously. Marty's a drummer too. I don't know if anybody knew that. We'll go upward, down, upward. Now, maybe a foam brush may work well with a tank car. I haven't done many tank cars. Done one like this. It worked pretty well. And the reason why I say use a light coat at first is because you got the lines with the paintbrush, and it's a light color on a black car. You know, it's a dark, at least a dark car. Um, you know, the lines may show a little more than maybe a foam brush because you have a consistent stroke going downward. So we have this. I'm going to go mute again. Now, see, there's a difference here, and this is what the other side looks like. And we're gonna clean this up a little bit on the edges here, or leave some of it. And you really want to clean. If you want to clean, clean it. Okay, so we're not going to go too crazy here, but let's see. All right, so that looks pretty much better. See, now here where I stopped, you can see the difference. And the cool part is you have those strokes going downward because rain, snow, all the liquids that fall down, they fall down like this, you know, or like this on the car. So they go on each side and they fall over. So that's a very simple technique, just like that. And obviously it's nowhere near done over here. You can always add more some powders and or some more fading. And like we said before, we're going to add some fading here in the bottom and some dirt and grime here. I may want this a little thicker than last time. I'm going to go in here. Go underneath. All right, back to view. So there's the bottom underneath. It has some dirt and grime from the tracks, and then on top it is faded. Now, if we want like a rust bucket on one side, let's do that, and it's okay, because if I don't like it or I want to then actually weather this thing, I can always get rid of it. Why? Because it's water based. And I can't stress that enough, because it's so exciting when, like, oh my gosh, I ruined the darn thing, and I go, oh wait, it's water and acrylics. Okay, back to mute. So now you have simple weathering and fading on this side here. And that's just the black and brown mixed. And there's your really light side. We fade it out. So now I did the same thing here with the black on top of the locomotive here. I mean, it's completely filthy black. This is pretty close to what the prototype looked like. And so I just did layer upon layer of different of paint of diluted paint, acrylics rather, on this side here, especially the front of the locomotive here. And also, I would same thing with this here. Let me actually grab this car right over here. I mean, this locomotive, this Conrail. I use a light, very, very light black dilute, and enough to get the bottom part where the walkway is has some dark, some black in there. It get into the nooks and crannies of the locomotive, and the little detailed parts. Same thing there. And yes, even the tank, the fuel tank, was the same. I used the same techniques. Let's see here. So let's say on this particular car here, or let's actually even better, I have a box car that I am working on currently. I'm making this a Virginian and Ohio box car, and I already started some of the weathering on the rooftop. But this has not been faded yet, and I will do one side of the fade just to show what it looks like with white paint, and I will clean it off before I put decals on. You want to put decals on before you fade, unless you have a patch, or it's already faded, an old box car, and it just has been, the logo has been redone, and they didn't care about repainting it. You know, I don't think I ever saw that before, but and if it's your railroad, who cares, right? So looking to get some white here. And I'm going to try to use the foam brush on one side and see what the difference looks like here between a foam brush and a paintbrush. Actually, I'm gonna go a lot smaller. I prefer a smaller foam brush. Okay, so some water there. I mean, light as it could possibly go. I'm running out of space here. I mean, really, really diluted, really just mostly water. Okay. And this is why I don't like a foam brush. You can see how it milks up in the bottom? I don't like that. I like using a paintbrush. So I'm going to go back. And a paintbrush, you can sort that down. Just like that. And actually, I want to use the one I've been using. I like these very fine, thin edgers. And we need a clean brush because now you're going with complete white. Otherwise, it's going to look different. And due to not cleaning it cleaning a brush properly, I already see some brown in here. I don't like that. So, like we talked about, water base. Just wipe it off, clean it up. That's it, easy. Oh my goodness, you didn't ruin your $50 box car. You don't have to throw it away. It's easy. That's it. Trust me, I freaked out one time when that actually happened. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is ruined. A little more here. More of that good stuff that is on the earth, water. All right. And if it's too thick, I just add some water. That's what I do here. Or if it's too much, we do that. Just that one little spot. And we'll talk about all the edging on the edges here, all that collected water and paint. Oh my goodness, we faded. Look at that. And you need to buy a $100 airbrush either, nor a compressor. Just your mom or your wife's or girlfriend's blow dryer. Nah, go get something from Goodwill or something like that. That's cheap, like I did. You won't get in trouble either. And actually, I think that blow dryer was like $6 out of a few years now. So now you got all this white that's caked. Now you can use the edge of the Q-tip and just blow dry it. So now it's a little more neater. Let's say you don't want, you have to go into little detailed parts, details on here. So for instance, there's a little spot like right here on the corners. That's just white that's caked in there. I want that completely gone. Now I left with an edger. I have to go buy micro brushes. I use the edge of this with a little bit of water. And you just clean the edges. So now I have a clean edge again. That easy. It's magic, right? I know. And let's say about $12 for the paints. Water's free. You can get it anywhere. Q-tips per $1.99 for the whole box, and I think I have this left over from last December. It's a whole year left. And I did a lot of models in the past year. So, you know, it's very inexpensive to do this kind of these kind of techniques here. So now there you can see some pieces of rolling stock where there are all sorts of fading going on, green, reds, and you just layer upon layer them. So for me, I would, let's say I like the way that is, seal it, then do another color over that. If you want, like maybe a little patch here has a little bit of maybe some tint of a green, you know, you can do that, or mix the colors together, you know, and then it all blends together with the water, and then voila, it's all faded together and combined on the one model into one level of weathering. So, and then from there you work your way up with powders and all those just all those different kind of tools and materials you can use to weather. And with this car here, I did the I used a very light coat of the brown and black that we just did together. Very light, almost lighter than this white. And I went over it, and then on the logo here, and the logo, I took a very diluted black paint, just enough to cover the blue, to darken it up a little bit. And then from there, I went over and sealed it with dull coat, and then went over it again with some powders, especially on the bottom here. Looks like kick up dirt and grime being kicked up from the tracks and the weather and the train, the wheels, all that good stuff that we like to see. That's how I did this car. And again, same thing with this one here. It's a simple technique, and you can see now on that, there wasn't an airbrush involved at all. So you can there's so many techniques you can use, and this one for me was very inexpensive. And honestly, it was a lifesaver, because there was no way I was going to finish the project for the gentleman before Christmas time. So, and I was like, oh, I got to share this. So for instance, I have a locomotive here. We're going to do the top of a rooftop fairly quickly. This is an old Mantua. Everybody knows these little guys, Mantua. Oh my goodness, right? We're going back in history here. Actually, it looks pretty weathered. It's pretty dusty, actually. But we're going to do the rooftop here, and I'm going to show you what a rooftop could look like on a locomotive using the same techniques. This is actually one of my first diesel locomotives. And again, if I don't like it, I can get rid of it using what? Using water. All right, we got some black, very diluted black. That may be too thick for me here. Okay. We want to go in the radiators and cover the top. Okay, do a little more. Now, I had a client who wanted a BNSF engine, whether a BNSF engine, Scale Trains -9 River Counter series, and he really wanted that rooftop really dark. And so I just thickened up the paint. That's all I did. All right, back to you. Okay, so here's the engine, not weather, and you can see the top. It's already darkened. Has some grime on it. And I'll show you what I did with this mix of brown and black together. Again, very, very diluted. You know what? Unless you want to look like a rust bucket, but that's up to you. And so the same techniques. Okay. Now, there's some brown in there, a little bit of the black. And you can see a difference on each side here. Going back to mute. Okay, so this is the side that has not been done, and this is the side that is done on this side here. Very light, as you can tell. But if you look at the logos, the logo here, there is some brown, and there's some black in here. It's just a light, and you can see the difference from here and here, right here. So let's say I want maybe the half circles here, I forgot they were called. I want just this part right here, very, very filthy. So when you go to your Q-tips, take a little bit of that mixed colors that we have here. And I'm just, that's all I did there. Mute. Now, this little instant here, I want to break it down a little bit more. There we go. Got rid of some of the excess that I didn't want. And I'm going to take that color. I'm going to go down with it. Mute again. Now you got some of that on the logo there. Just that's it. Like that's a little bit just to show something. Now we got like 4 minutes before we answer any questions. Now let's say I've taken it up way too. Let's say I want this whole spot right here just completely darkened. Just right here. I want the whole thing of this side of the locomotive completely darkened except the logo. I want the logo bright and nice and visible for everybody. And now we have to blow dry it, clean it up, and we'll clean it up. Okay, so now it looks a lot filthier, right? But I want the logo to be more visible. So we get our little very expensive edge here of the Q-tip. And we go over the logo. A little more water on this side. And don't wipe it, blow dry it. And we're going to do that. So now the logo is much more visible, but still streaking down on here. So you got some heavy weathering going down this way, and then you have the logo much more visible. And the cool part, if you look really closely at the engine, the logo itself, there is some brown on there that I didn't quite get. Oh my goodness, that's okay, because unless you want to completely, to me, it's not as prototypical unless it's completely spotless. You have some very minuscule weathering detail on there, which is just you not cleaning it up all the way. So you have to go there with a micro brush with a magnifying glass and or a big thing of lens, and trying to get the little detail or the little rivet that you didn't get. You can just clean up certain parts and make it. Oh, I lost.
Okay, Joey, we're that was brilliant. We're getting close to the end of the session now. So I think there may be some questions that people have been firing through.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, let's have a look here. I'll have a little look on the computer. And Grandpa Rails is asking, Joey, have you ever used alcohol inks for weathering?
I do occasionally. But I found that using water is much more forgivable and easier to work with. Because sometimes with using rubbing alcohol, it can leave some residue on it, and I don't like that. So I use water.
Okay, and Andy's asking question here: did Conrail tend to keep their logos cleaner than Southern Pacific?
Depends where in the country, but no, we all know Southern Pacific. 99% of their roster is absolutely filthy.
Yes,
Unless you have
sorry.
Unless you have the newer -9s or the AC44s, they kept those things fairly clean compared to the older EMD power.
I noticed Ralph chimed in on that one, and he said they did for the most part, but later on, if it wasn't making money and getting dirty, there was something wrong. And
Right.
Ralph also makes a comment. He says, Joey, tell them what you did with your airbrush. So was there a story beyond your airbrush?
Yes, I wasn't using it properly, and I clogged it up, and I couldn't figure out how to clean it, and I was very pressed for time, and I had to be at the post office 10 in the morning the next morning. It was about 1 in the morning earlier than that, and I needed to get the locomotive completed, so I went to this technique.
And what acrylics do you say you're using, and what powders? So what brands?
I use Anita's acrylic. These are right here. And Apple Barrel is pretty decent for like the cheaper paints you can get at any craft store like Walmart too. Also, I use some of these acrylics too. Rowney. I use some of them as well for other kind of projects. But I'm basically right here going for maybe for like beginners, or if you can't get to a store and you just have craft paint at the house, you can do the same techniques with that too. And if it isn't, if the paints aren't flat, you could dull coat them after that, so it will still work. But it's easy for me just to buy the flat paint.
Okay, and when you're doing your weathering, how important are using prototype photos and that for reference? Do you?
I do, and when I weather, I have my clients. They give me pictures of the locomotive, of the actual locomotive that or model. I'm sorry, the rolling stock of locomotives that I will be weathering. Sometimes they don't have a picture, and so I'll be doing the research, and I have loads of DVDs. Obviously, there's YouTube, and obviously rail fanning photos and researching online at photos as well. And sometimes we take a screenshot right off the TV, right off the computer, and go off of those, or a train magazine. Also, I also will, if there's a project, let's say I remember a BNSF locomotive that I did, and he could not find the picture of the prototype, but he gave me a few other locomotives of the same type of model that he liked. So one had a toaster, and the other one had a little red box for represent the Santa Fe, like the old Santa Fe on the BNSF. So I used 3 different photos of 3 different complete locomotives for the actual model.
For that one particular model, huh? Cool. And so let's have a little look over on YouTube and Facebook now. There's a few questions there. There we go. It's probably more of a statement, but some acrylics don't, Mike's saying that some acrylics don't wash off once dry. Check first. So have you had that experience?
Not with these, no. And I'm sure there's certain acrylics I know these certain acrylics may have that issue. But the cheaper stuff that I use, the Anitas are very, very forgiving.
Okay. And I think it was the last question here on Facebook. I'll just have a scroll down. And Rick was asking, do you ever do structure weathering?
I do. I actually posted a few photos of one of my old MTH buildings that I had that I repainted, weathered, and added little signs off of Google. I cut them out and glued them to the building.
Cool.
So.
Cool. Well, that looks like it's about all the questions there, I think, on Facebook and YouTube. No doubt Brad will chime in if I've missed one or left something out. But again, Joey, another brilliant clinic, and thanks a million. And take care, and we will speak with you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate being part of the NMRA clinics here. Thank you.
Not a problem. It's great having you here.
Bye.